Hello everyone, my name is Railgan. I assume most of you that watch this channel know that by now. And I've had a fairly successful season so far. I'm currently hovering at around 6.1k MMR on Europe. And I would like to show you guys in the next 3 videos that I'm going to upload how I got here. You can have a quick look. These are my current win ratios, for those of you who are interested. ZvP 45, ZvT 63 and CVC 57% win rate. And I'm going to show you guys one style at a time in each video on how I play my standard ZvT, ZvC and CVP. First off, we're gonna start with ZvT, where I'm going to talk you a bit through the build. Sorry for the coughing. I have to live with that one for now. So this is a game between me and Certain. Actually, I don't know. I don't remember it too much. Yeah, it's been a while ago. My standard CVT opener is a 17 pool. I'm going for a 17 pool in 100% of my matches against Terran. There is no reason, in my opinion, to ever go for a hedge first, because a pool first opener has so many advantages, such as the faster queen, which allows the defense against the Reaper, and you can also put aggression on your opponent with 2 early Lings. You can take a fast third because the Reaper has to go home to defend. You can tech fast into a Spire. You can play a Roach follow-up, which is what I do. You have so many options, and you're also not economically behind because the faster queen allows you to get out the drones just as fast as if you had the faster hatchery. Anyways, for the opener I went 17 pool, 18 hatch, 17 gas, 2 drones into gas, then took 1 drone, turned it into a Roach warren, then filled up the gas, built an overlord, went for a total of 1 queen into 2 additional queens. The exact build order was queen, then roaches 2, then the 3rd queen here and the 3rd roach. That is the most ideal opener in my opinion. Then at home I'm just droning up. I sent my 2 Lings across the map. You can always try to do damage to the Terran. If we go back a little bit, we can see what I did with my Lings. Here's a quick look at them. Of course, the Lings have to somehow evade the Reaper. You'll figure that one out. Like the Reaper path is always different per player and per map. Right here, my Lings are trying to do damage. The goal is, of course, to delay the CC. Ideally, you kill the Marine and then some SCVs, but not always possible. Anyways, for my follow-up, I'm sending some Roaches across the map. My first queen that I built starts creep spreading. As soon as my next 2 queens are done, I start my lair, and I'm just droning. Drone. My roaches go across the map. They try to do as much damage as they possibly can. You have to retreat home pretty quickly usually, because if the Terran builds Marauders, you're in some trouble. If the Terran would build Cyclones as well. This guy though is just building Hellions. He's kiting me decently. But you can tell the Roaches are doing quite a bit of damage. These were just 3 Roaches. If you look at the workers active, I didn't really kill any workers with this push, but I'm still in a good position worker wise. So I'm feeling pretty good. At home I'm just droning, and around 4 minutes, sometimes a little bit earlier, I start my next 2 gases. We're gonna speed things up a bit right here. And now this half-dead Hellion is now starting to mine from his natural. In the meantime, my natural is finished. Around 4:30 is when I start 2 Spore Crawlers, 1 main, 1 natural. They're used to defend against Banshees. As soon as the lair is done, I build a Spire. That was a Hellion attacking me a bit. I built the Spire as soon as the lair is done, and I aim for a total of 44 drones. I chose this game because I feel like it's kind of as standard as it gets, game-wise. There's just a Liberator poking a bit at me here. Poke. Kiting him around a bit. I take my 3rd base as soon as I have main and natural saturated. I have the Spire on the way, or rather, I started the Spire. Whether it's done or not doesn't matter. and when I have my spores and a couple of roaches for safety. Then I take my third base, which is usually around, I think this game was like 4 minutes 40-ish. Like you don't need a super fast third base because you're going to invest your money into Mutalisks. I usually go for like 4 to 6 Mutalisks, and yes, for those of you who have been watching this for a while, it's still the same old 3 Roach opener that I've been playing since 3 years. It's basically still the same build. What is different is nowadays I make a different follow-up. The goal with my Mutalisks is to kind of harass him a bit. You can tell at home I'm just getting the Evolution Chamber upgrades, a Bane Ling nest, and the Ling speed right now after getting the Roach speed. Roach speed is not super important, but it's a nice to have thing. My Mutalisks can't really do too much damage. I didn't get out there enough. I took my gas a little bit late, but I eventually usually get the missile upgrade, or rather air attack for my Mutalisks as well, and I just try to get control over the mid game. The Terran took a pretty fast third base. Most Terrans will delay it a bit, but he was pretty fast with his third. You want to follow it up with your fourth base as soon as your third base saturated. You don't need too many defensive units because the Mutalisks keep the Terran in check. And all in all, this is a very easy build to kind of play. Like it all lines up really nicely. You have the Roach, the 2 Lings for early pressure, then the 3 Roaches for pressure, then you defend with a couple Roach, Queen spores, then you take control over the map again with Mutalisks, and then you start building up a Ling Bane Muta army, and eventually tech into Hive and add Ultralisks to the mix. That's usually my build. And I play the same style against Mech. Against Mech I just go Ling Bane Muta as well. Like, it's the exact same build. Start to finish. Which works decently for me, so. Once I have my third base, main and natural saturated, and my upgrades on the way, and a couple safety banes, is when I usually start going for mass mutas. You don't need to go for 10 mutas immediately. I kind of just wait until I have enough eco and then I start building them. The core force for defending is of course the Banelings, and you always want some Lings to tank for the Banelings. The Lings are mostly just tanks. There's very few times in a game where your main force for fighting is actually the Lings. This game I'm delaying my +2/+2 a little bit. Definitely a mistake, but it doesn't really matter too much. I easily shut down all of his drops with my mass mutas. You might have expected me to go for a mass Roach Ravager style, but I went mass mutas instead. Killing both drops gives me a nice supply advantage. I also have only 1 queen spreading creep, but you can still get a pretty nice creep spread going. I don't go for 4 to 6 queens like other people. Actually, I do have 4 queens because I use them in check, but I only have 1 queen spreading creep. Once you have a nice Mutalisk flock, you can be pretty aggressive with them, because the Terran can't actually do too much. If you just send 6 Marines or so to defend, you can easily kill the Marines, like here. Like being showcased here. With Mutas I always go for attack upgrades over Carapace, because your goal is not really to tank with the Mutas, but just to do damage very quickly. And you want to reduce the amount of volleys needed and not increase the amount of Mutalisks that you have, because supply-wise, Mutalisks aren't really that amazing either. Right here I'm actually going for an attack. I turned my Ravagers into, my Roaches into Ravagers rather. The attack is like semi-efficient. I think I go a bit too deep with the Mutas and lose a couple there. You don't really want to lose too many Mutas. Biles can be nice. Landed a bit on that bio there. You can also, for example, use Burrow. And usually by the time like my 2-2 is halfway done, or when I have my 4th base set up with drones, is when I start my infestation pit into Hive. In these fights, the Terran will always try to split his Marines, so what I'm doing in the fights micro-wise is just move command my Banelings around to try and aim for the clumps of Marines, and I also want to keep the Mutalisks at the back, so Lings and Roaches. Well, mostly Lings and Banelings tank for them. As far as the 4th base goes, You always want at least 4 gases, at least 4 bases with gas. This game I'm just kind of mass expanding all over the place, because there's not really too much that he can do. Like, yeah, he is being a little bit persistent with his drops here and there. I'm going to speed it up a bit. Hive is on the way, by the way. Burrow is also on the way. +2 damage upgrade is done for Muta, so now I'm getting carapace upgrades. And you can just kind of keep sniping these tanks. Like, at every unit that he has standing around, you can just roll over. And if he unsieges, you just go in and crush a couple units and then disengage again. Or, well, if he fucks up that badly, you just kind of roll over him. You always want to more safety banings at home. It's not a good idea to attack with all your units, because in every engagement, you always have to think of the next engagement as well. Like, there's no, like, StarCraft is not a game where one engagement ends it all. We wrote banelings. Watch this. Watch. Well, usually in StarCraft, one engagement doesn't end it all, so you kind of have to keep in mind that you... oh my god, he saw those. That you need a follow-up plan, so if you just lose all the banelings in the fight, that usually ends pretty poorly for you. So usually when I engage, I already morph my next 16 or so banelings. I still have some banelings left right now, so I'm kinda fine. Mutas are harassing. Once again, I just kept building a bigger and bigger flock of Mutalisks. And the count is so high and their upgrades are so good that it's really hard for the Terran to keep them in check. Like, he needs a lot of turrets and Widow Mines at all bases. And my Mutalisks can just attack whatever base they want. It's also hard to take map control away from them. Once I get my Hive, I get the Ultra's Cavern, free, Adrenal Glands, all the good upgrades. This one over here is kind of dangerous. I think Force are pretty dangerous. And I'm also... a lot of my Banings kind of roll to their death there, so I think I'm gonna sack this space. I'm pretty sure I do. I don't know. Because Force are really good against Mutas. Like, if the Muta is engaged, clumped up. I always move command the Banes, very important. Because if you A move, they will just crush against the first unit that they meet. But yeah. Eventually I end up losing this space. It's okay to lose 1 or 2 bases here and there, as long as you have some follow-ups. I mean, I'm still on 5 bases, I'm still trying to take this one. The engagement I took over there wasn't really good, so... shit happens. Now it's important for me to get Overlord speed, so my Overseers are good. A lot of Terrans will transition to Widow Mines, and rarely will they actually go for Force against Mutas. Because Widow Mines are a pretty amazing unit. They're kinda like siege tanks. And you can't, it's very hard to stop the upgraded Widow Mines from shooting. So you want to send in a couple of units, ideally like a couple of Banelings, and just move them on top of the Widow Mines. So even if the Widow Mines shoot, they just end up killing themselves. That's usually how I micro. In these fights, I just take control of the Banelings and move them into on top of my opponent's army. Once you have Mutalisks and Force, it gets Mutalisks and Ultras, it gets really hard for your opponent to deal with your army, as you can tell here. I am killing both his Medivacs and his Bio units, and losing Medivacs is pretty expensive. He of course also took out that base over there. Then the Mutalisks arrive, pew 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 pew. I'm gonna speed things up a bit. I think you kinda get the idea of how I play this game. I just try to, whenever I defend an attack, I try to go for a counter with Mutas. Throw some Banelings everywhere. Not quite sure when the final engagement happens, if this is it already, or if there's gonna be more. Fighting off creep is always tough, but it was hard for me to get creep spread over here. Of course, expanded all the way down there. I think this is it. I just move command my Banelings into his Marines here, and he ends up losing most of his units. Just kind of rolling over him. He does have some Liberators left, but it's not enough. And yeah, it's kind of how I play ZvT at the moment. I open pool first into a Roach foreign, then I go 2 base Spire, then I go 3 hatch Ling Bane Muta. Then when I get my 4th, I go for the Hive and get the Ultralisk Cavern. And from then on, I just keep expanding, keep a really high drone count. I was at around 80 workers all game long, and try to get to like 6 Ultralisks, 20 to 30 Mutas, and Wrestling Bane. Hope you enjoyed the game, guys.